everyone, and welcome to another First Impressions video. This is going to be sort of my initial thoughts on the new Viz series, Children of the Whales. This is written by Abi Umeda, and if you haven't given this series a try, it's probably one that I think a lot of people were very, very interested in. This is currently ongoing in Japan. As I said, Viz is releasing it, and it has this very interesting fantasy setting to it. I really like the world building that is going on with this half fantasy, half sci-fi almost dystopic setting that the characters are in. So this book starts introducing you to the world and sort of how our main character Chakura is his place in it. He lives within a society where a majority of people have these powers that are controlled by human emotion, but because of that, their lives are very short. And then a small percentage that don't have these powers but are very long-lived, so they end up as the sort of governing body, the leaders of the group. Chakura himself does have these powers, but he doesn't really utilize them very well. He doesn't practice or is able to use them to the skill that his peers do. He is the self-proclaimed historian of where he lives, which is, I must mention, a mud whale. It's I don't know if it's sentient, but it's this floating island that they all live on. It's a very small population, only a couple hundred people, and that's their entire world. They're surrounded by a sea of sand to which they're continually moving through, and every so often they may come across other floating islands in which they scavenge and look for other signs of life, to which they've never found any. So you're introduced to this very interesting, as I said, dystopic, almost fantasy setting where people have powers, but it does have such a high cost. And then you have your main character who's a little bit different, a little bit of an outsider, and just documents the day-to-day life, the events that happen on their island every day, so that there's a record of their past and that future generations may be able to understand and see what was going on the mud whale, whether or not things were changing. Within that, they discover another island close, so they go to scavenge, as I mentioned, and our main character discovers a girl by herself, passed out. The first time anyone has ever seen a human from outside of their village, and so he and the other people who have come to scavenge take her back, clean her up, and send her to the Grand Council who runs the place. And from her understanding, she's a emotionless warrior. I think a human developed to never have emotions, so that they can utilize their powers to the highest of their ability. And it hints on the larger world that these characters live in. Up until that point, you can really see how isolated the main setting of this drifting mud whale is and was, and how the outside world is so disconnected. But this girl is the first link and the first hint that there might be anything else out there. As the volume develops, you're introduced to a group called the Moles, I think, who are the criminals, basically. They get locked up underground like moles do, but they continually go underground because they keep doing bad things. But being locked underground is considered sort of one of the worst punishments they could inflict because their lives are so short. Having any amount of it sort of as captives just devalues the life that you live, and it's you know, ruining or wasting the precious 30 years of life you have. And we're introduced to the leader of these bands of hooligans, really. And what you seem to understand from these characters is most of their problems they cause is trying to escape the island, trying to find something more than this 500 people city, which you can definitely understand that yearning to understand and learn and escape from what you know as your reality. But the moles the leader takes the opportunity to grab the girl and our main character and sort of escape from the Grand Council, who are very upset that she's turned up. And at the end, there's a big twist, or a big turn, not necessarily twist, where a large army, or I should say air defense force, comes to attack and pretty much slaughter everyone on the Mud Whale. So a lot of the side characters that we're introduced to early on are killed. So it's a dramatic shift at the end of the volume. So which is good because it's setting up the next part of the story and what direction it's going in. So in that sense, it's very interesting. It reminds me a little bit, just with the atmosphere and theming, of the series Last Exile, if you've seen that anime. It has a very interesting view on politics, or very similar discussions of politics and sort of existing together, and you can see there's hints from what we see at the end of this volume that the people on this island are not, I mean, they're not the only people out there, obviously, but they're really this, I think, like criminals, or they've been exiled. They're not people that larger society wants around, and so it means nothing for soldiers to come and get rid of them all. Although it's been several generations of these short-lived magic users. I don't remember the exact term that they use. So many, like a good chunk of the population doesn't realize that. There's no written records before our main character starts writing a history of the island or the Mud Whale, whereas the older, much older people who have very long lives experience firsthand why they have been left on this Mud Whale. So it's very curious. I'm looking forward to seeing where Volume 2 goes. It's not your typical sort of series. I think it's one that a lot of people were looking forward to, and Viz did a really great job with it. I think there was a recent anime adaptation. I don't know. I can't remember. I think it was on Amazon, so I'm always far behind on those. But yes, it's a very intriguing series. It's nice to have one of these, I want to say like fantasy sci-fi with a twist. It reminds me of a lot of things, but at the same time, it's been a long time since we've had a series like this. So I'm looking forward to how Umeda writes the story, and yeah, so I think it's a pretty solid first volume. I am very interested to see where the series goes, especially with the ending to this particular volume and how it develops from here. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video, and bye till then.